All right. Well, we're gonna try a little experiment here.
Yeah.
We think it's gonna work. We are kind of definitely gonna make this up as we go. But in our collecting of books, I think Sarah and I like to have some sort of ranking for books. But I think if we're gonna be ranking things for all y'all, we need to have some sort of classification system.
Yeah.
So we're gonna determine that now.
We're going to try really hard.
Yeah. Or not that hard and see what happens.
By that I mean, it's there. I absolutely have a ranking system in my mind, and I have no idea what my criteria are. Really, I've never tried to parse it before.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by try really hard.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to parse it in real time with no preparation for this right now with you.
Yes, but I'm very happy we'll be able to transcribe this episode so that we can make some sort of graphic on our website.
Yeah.
So I will say I'm the person that will give everything 5 stars if I enjoyed it at all. But I realize that's not always the most helpful, either for me recommending things to people or to just remember the nuance of what I really enjoyed about things. So I do appreciate when bloggers or podcasters, whatever they're ranking, they have a set classification system that they can compare things to.
Yes.
Because I find that helpful just for me to get a sense of like, well, just because you like something doesn't mean I'm going to like something. So is there anything more academic about it that can be explained? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you think are your criteria?
Well, so I think we just decided as we were recording an episode that a rating of 1 to 10 is good because that allows for more nuance.
Yes.
So I guess let's start with the bookends. 1, do not pick up, would not recommend, waste of time, could not finish.
Barely got into.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah. So then
I would put Hemingway there.
Oh, I love Hemingway.
I hate
Hemingway. The ways that I think we're going to be similar are so different. I love Hemingway.
I just got in there for my husband because I shit on Hemingway weekly in our house.
Really?
I was forced to read The Sun Also Rises 4 times in my literary career as a student.
I'm sorry.
And every time it was like, oh, he's got one ball. Life is so sad.
You didn't feel at least a little bad for him?
And everyone's like, oh, Hemingway. And I'm like, Octavia Butler, okay?
Well, fair. But, you can't really compare the two. They're so different.
Why must I keep reading
Okay,
Hemingway?
fair. No, I will never, ever,
this
ever.
Is not the time. That can be some hot take pod that I do. We're already off track.
Okay. So, Hemingway would be Sarah's 1.
Yes.
I would really have to think about a 1. Because, again, critical is not the word, but I do think that with your background in literature, you are trained to be more critical from a positive perspective.
Yes.
I can access that more often when I'm reading. I'm not reading to be critical. I'm reading for enjoyment and
makes you happy.
Yeah, and I do have relatively low standards on what makes me happy.
No, I love that. Again, I do think it's such a good thing to point out, and for all of you fellow English majors and English MFAs, if you were like me, and then English professors and then booksellers, you get so used to reading with an eye for, is this worthwhile to me?
Mm-hmm.
Versus, does this make me happy? And I think part of what's been so joyful to me in our journey as friends and the way you've helped me enjoy reading again is because it's like, oh, this just makes me happy.
Yeah.
And I don't care that it's maybe lowbrow or just this one genre that I keep reading or whatever. So that's really nice. You've definitely helped me reconnect with that, which I really appreciate.
Oh, awesome. Glad to hear that. And, on the flip side, I think the thesis that you presented on the last book that we just reviewed, when I read our notes, I was like, damn, that's why people go to get an MFA. Right there, the theme that you picked up on just by this one read through, not even talking about it in a group, just how you were able to zero in on what I didn't even put into words. So I think, we're a good balance and we're able to access and find perspective on books together. So
yes.
So let's talk about what would be our 10. So 10, I really want to reserve for me 10 being my top 10 books. I only want to reserve that space for 10 books that are my top that I would read over and over and over and over again. So would recommend to everybody.
Yes.
regardless of genre, regardless of my thinking they might like just one that everybody should read. Like for me, The Alchemist. I just reread it.
It's a good book.
Last week. I first read it in high school in an English class. Was blown away by the story, by the writing, just by the messaging. That book stuck with me for so long, and I have reread it probably half a dozen times in the last 25 years. I found it on the street in Oakland, guys. People leave their books on the street all the time, and I love
delightful.
that. I love that. I am constantly, probably a third of the books on my shelf are street books. And I had just noticed it on a friend's bookshelf the day before, and I was like, oh, I should really reread that. Do I still have that? I didn't. And then the next day it showed up on the sidewalk. And so I spent I think that was on a Friday, that Sunday morning. I read it. It's like 200 pages. It was an easy, it was so good. And that's a big, like, point of the book. So
Yes.
for me, that would be one of my top 10 books, The Alchemist.
For me, yeah, Parable of the Sower is up there. I would say it's one that I, first of all, have probably reread an untold amount of times, and I will keep rereading for the rest of my life. And every time I reread it, I will be sublimely happy.
Mm-hmm.
One that I will recommend to people regardless of any single element in the book, regardless of who the characters are, what the plot is, what the genre is, the way it's written, like all of that being totally irrelevant to this will change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It will change your life and your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You will feel better for having read it, kind of thing. Like just the best that a book can offer us is a 10.
Yes. I've never heard of that book. Which is
that's
crazy.
That's not a book. What are you talking about?
No, the one that you mentioned.
Oh, Parable of the Sower?
Parable of the Sower.
I thought you were like, I was talking about the Conference is not a book.
No, the one that you mentioned to
That's Octavia Butler.
Oh, okay.
You need to read it.
Okay, great. I do.
She is the greatest of all time.
This is also my problem. Like, I need a separate file folder that I can access in my brain of all the books I've read, because, like, damn, I have lost track. But cool.
African American writing in the 70s, writing science fiction and fantasy, writing these extremely beautifully subversive, so compelling. She's a phenomenal writer, but she's so socially important too. Mm-hmm. The fact that more people do not know about her is devastating.
Yeah. I'm aware of her. I haven't read that book.
Yeah, that is, I think, her most political, other than Kindred. Kindred is political because it's a Black woman traveling back to antebellum South.
Whoa.
Oh, it's scary. Talk about anxiety.
Cool.
You should read that one
because
too.
I'm sure that's a thing that.
And her white husband ends up traveling back with her and has a very different experience, and it's fascinating. It's fucking phenomenal. But Parable of the Sower is more a dystopian future. Politics, religion, race coming into play. It is a very faith-y book, but in a non-denominational way. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous book.
Awesome. Adding to my list.
Yeah.
Another one that I have always said is in my top 3 is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Mm. And that is one that I have not reread in a while. Maybe this conversation will spark me to reread it. I just remember reading it high school or college, I forget, and then moving to California and living not too far from Salinas and rereading it because somebody I think had it on their bookshelf. And I was like, oh yeah, isn't that set? Like,
it's such a Bay Area.
Yeah. And, you can drive to, his house or whatever, which I've never done.
Cannery Row. Mm-hmm. And, yeah.
I just remember it was the first book that somebody made me read for a class that I was like, this is the most gorgeous writing. It was gorgeous. Absolutely stunning. And I just felt like it painted a picture of the characters and of the landscape and of the story in a way that I hadn't yet experienced. It's not the only one, but it's I think remains like special to me because of that. It was the first one that I really was like, oh, this is what masterful writing this is what masterful writing is, and this is what masterful writing does. Yes. And this is why we're still talking about some of these authors.
And studying it.
And dissecting it, and
yes.
That. So that's just, I know there's more, but those are at least 2 of my top 10.
Love.
Yeah.
Love. So then I guess the middle is somewhere between those 2 places. It's something you're like, this was okay. For me, the book we just read, A Marvelous Light, was just up from the middle, meaning I could put it down pretty easily, but when I picked it up, I wasn't agonized to keep reading. Mm-hmm. I wanted to keep reading, but I don't think I will reread it. I don't necessarily know that I will recommend it to everyone. It's a very specific recommendation. It was sweet. I got a lot out of it in that way, but it didn't change my world. Mm-hmm. I didn't learn anything new necessarily. I had new thoughts, but I wasn't having revelations.
That's a good qualification of a middle. Yeah. So then anything above a 5, we would recommend.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's also a good criteria.
With maybe caveats.
Yeah.
Because it's like perhaps different flavors of ice cream sort of thing.
Oh, strawberry ice cream.
Oh my God, I hate strawberry ice cream. I've never liked it.
Oh.
I love fruit. I love strawberries. I enjoy strawberries and whipped cream, but emulsify it with ice, and
emulsify it with ice.
No, but like what I'm saying, cream. Okay, no, I'm saying emulsify the whipped cream and strawberries with ice. Like I'm saying, take what I enjoy, strawberries and whipped cream, and make it ice cream, and I don't like it.
I think there is a fundamental misunderstanding of how ice cream is. I'm joking. Okay, well, great. We're discovering our differences today.
I'm a mint chocolate chip girl.
I do also love mint chocolate chip.
Yeah.
Same. Okay, so then what are we ever going to rank anything between a 0 and a 5?
I hope not, because I think either these are books that I have vetted for us in a certain sense and feel that the people I trust on Instagram, for example, who are like, if you like this book, you'll like this book. And that's why we're reading it. That's why we've added it to our syllabus.
Yeah.
I feel confident they'll be in the 5 to 10 range.
Yeah. I do feel if I can name a book that I would put in the 0 to 5 is Gone Girl. I hated that book. I hated the main character. I hated all of it. And I basically ended up hate reading it. So I wouldn't give it a 0 because I do.
Because you hate read it.
Because I see why it was popular and I did finish it. But I don't like that it's a popular, or at the time was a popular book. I would give Gone Girl like a 2. That would be my 2.
Yeah.
I could not stand her. And then just the way, like, I respect the way that she ended that story. Did you read it?
No, I haven't.
Gillian
the person
Flynn
gave it to me.
Yeah.
I know of it. Obviously, I know the famous monologue or chapter.
Yeah.
About cool girls, and I know the plot. And
yeah,
I like Fincher. Although sometimes I get very scared very easily. I don't really read thrillers. So it wouldn't have been one that I picked up on my own anyway.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, don't really like to be scared, you guys. So
yeah, I can really only do thrillers in book. Well, that's not true. I will sometimes watch them, but I need to know what I'm getting into. Like, I need content warnings. Like, watch Baby Reindeer. I never should have watched that show. Oh God, that.
See, I knew immediately that I would not want to watch that.
I did not know the content enough, and I was traumatized by that show. But not to say I do think it was a masterful creation. And I do respect it for what it is. But like, yeah, that was too much even for me. And I can go dark, but that one.
This is not a book, but that's how I feel about Breaking Bad. I watched the entirety of Breaking Bad because an ex-boyfriend of mine insisted. And I was a good girl. And I watched every single fucking episode with him. The spoiler alert for the show that was on forever.
Well, don't tell me how it ended because I never saw the last season and I actually liked it.
Okay. Not a spoiler alert. The last scene happens. He turns off the show and he turns to me and he's all excited. He's like, well, and I go, I hated it. And he was like, so mad. We had a huge fight. And I was like, I'm allowed to hate it. He's like, it's amazing. It's masterful. You kept pointing out how good the writing is and the direction.
Well, it's because you can.
And I was like,
masterful writing and still
like, yeah, it's a well done show that I hated watching. And we had a whole argument about how I was saying that's a possible thing to experience, and he was saying it was.
He sounds like a twerp.
This relationship did not last, you guys.
And not that we can't have constructive disagreements about things, but it's cool.
Anyway, so there are absolutely books where you're like, that was a good book. Oh, I hated it.
Yeah.
You know, and those I think are like 4s, maybe 3s, 4s.
Yeah.
For other people, those might be their 8, 9, 10s.
Exactly.
Obviously, reading is subjective in a lot of times.
Yes.
Yeah.
So agreed. We're probably not ever going to rank. I mean, unless we wildly, one of us loves something and the other doesn't, but I don't really see that happening.
I would be shocked, but
who knows?
No, it almost would be kind of exciting if that happened.
Although I am at some point going to read without Sarah, Butcher and Blackbird. Is that the name of the serial killer one?
Yes.
So Sarah is not going to read it. I'm going to read it. But
we are protecting my heart and my anxiety.
And I'm like, I want to know what happens with these 2 serial killers.
There's a lot of books on like Book Talk again that I'm like, Jenny, will you read this for me?
And I will. And you know, I will put things down if they get to be too much. But more often than not, I'll finish them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so we've named our 1. Our ranking for 1, our ranking for 10. in the middle. Anything
Mhm.
above a 5 is something we would recommend, maybe with some caveats or some warnings. Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with that.
I do as well.
But I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the pepper rating,
yes.
you mentioned something. That was a more complicated pepper rating than I've ever heard. So maybe let's get into a spicy level rating as well.
Spice. So traditionally, you might see 1 little red pepper emoji to 5. Many people on Instagram have decided this is not accurate enough.
Because you need more nuance.
There needs to be more nuance. And so they've added a green bell pepper.
Okay, so that's the 1.
That's a 0, really. That's or I guess it's a 1, but it goes before the first red pepper emoji.
Okay, I say let's call that the 1.
It's penultimate. Yeah, okay, it's 1.
9 or 1?
Well, it's a green bell pepper. It's not numbers.
Where I don't think I'm ever going to rank something as 0 is what I'm saying. So can we make the green bell pepper
a 1? But I will use the term green bell pepper.
Okay.
I won't say 1.
Perfect.
Okay, so what this means is, again, closed door. The characters get together, but you don't read about it. We don't get the delicious, juicy details. It's as though everything is so Lorcan did, as Sarah J. Maas has forever destroyed my heart with. Mm. And all of us want to know what he did. So that's, a lot of YA is green bell pepper. Maybe they kiss. Maybe there's some touching.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that happens off screen or off page. And then you get, the 1 red pepper, which is, maybe there's some sex stuff, but it's really mild. And then, 2, 3, 4, 5 red peppers. And then on the upper end of the spectrum, there's a Carolina Reaper. There's a ghost pepper. There's this smut was smutting so hard, you guys.
Okay.
And a lot of times it's the BDSM stuff, the stuff that's a bit kinkier,
dark romance,
more heavier. Not only is it fast burn, meaning they're fucking right away, but the type of fucking they're doing is maybe something you've never encountered before, and it's very detailed.
Or pushes your boundaries.
Ooh, doggy. And a lot of the time, again, when I was getting into smut really recently, especially for this podcast, and I was like, what's the smuttiest smut? A lot of times Sierra Simone was recommended, but I would say she's often a 5 spice pepper, 5 pepper emoji, and not in this even Carolina Reaper zone occasionally. But so it's,
okay. Yeah. So you named 8 peppers then in that ranking.
Yes.
Green pepper, 5 levels of chili pepper, which I think is a little red pepper.
And then I guess ghost pepper, then Carolina Reaper is the spiciest. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. So I like that. I like having 8.
Okay.
I feel 10 might have been a bit much for the spice, but I like the 1 to 5 chili peppers makes sense to me.
And that's the standard.
And that's the standard. And then having the 2 more extreme spice. And then I do like the little green bell pepper. I'm going to figure out a way to illustrate that in a little line so we can rate things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And, again, this is relatively subjective. A funny meme on the internets is when a person ranks a book 5 spice peppers and you thought it was just 1 and you're like, what's wrong with me?
When feminism leaves my body kind of thing.
Yeah, you're like, what is my scale anymore for normal? So take it with a grain of salt. There's some malleability here as well, and your mileage may vary.
That's true. Very true. Okay, I think we nailed it.
We did it.
We did it. All right. Well, I will figure out a way. We will figure out a way to graphically depict this. And as we go, we're going to add our rankings and a little bit more information for each episode on our website. We're working on it, but
it's work in progress.
Yeah. So great.
Great
Criteria.
Well, wonderful. Can't wait to talk more.
Sounds good.
All right.
Bye, guys.